starting a business is easy, but growing the business is so much harder because you don't know. And sometimes it is intuition and sometimes it's a leap and sometimes it's poring over spreadsheets of your financials and being like, I hope this is the right choice. And it's a dose of both, but it's definitely more nerve-wracking than just starting the business.
Welcome to the Designer's Oasis podcast. I'm your host, Kate Bendewald. If you're tired of one-size-fits-all advice to running your interior design business, you're in the right place. Join me each week as we dive into topics to help you run a thriving interior design business without the hustle. We'll talk about the business of design, but also mindset and mental health, because I know when you thrive, so will your life and business. It wasn't that long ago that I stepped away from my corporate interior design job to build my own design business so that I could realize my own creative dreams, have more time with the people I love, and serve my clients at the highest level while making more money than I ever could have working for someone else. It wasn't always easy, and I made my share of mistakes along the way. Fast forward to today, and I've learned a thing or two. Since then, I've built multiple six-figure interior design businesses on authentic word-of-mouth referrals with many repeat clients. And I want to share it all with you, the ambitious, inspired, and I get it, occasionally overwhelmed interior designer who shares this dream of transforming lives through the art of interior design. You can do this. Thank you for letting me spend part of this day with you. Let's get to it. My guest today on the podcast is Libby Rawes from Sharp and Gray Interiors out of Philadelphia. I first met Libby as a student inside the Interior Designers Business Blueprint program. She was one of the very first members, founding members, so she's been around for a long time. And what I love about her is, first of all, I have had the true privilege of getting to see her dedication to her business pay off. She is smart. She is curious and she is truly dedicated, and it hasn't always been easy for her, and so I knew that she would be willing to share some of that story, some of that journey. She pivoted to interior design after leaving her marketing and branding career. And so today she's going to share with us a little bit about how that experience and that skill set played into her ability to serve her interior design clients really well. And she gives some really solid advice on how you, if you're considering a career change or you're pivoting, how you can draw upon the past skills that you've had, no matter what they are, and bring them into your career as an interior designer. And so we talk about that. We talk about investing in your business and how scary and important it can be. We talk about hiring and hiring the right roles and how sometimes you get it wrong and sometimes you get it right. And, I just am so grateful that she was willing to share honestly and openly about her story, her journey. She's a mom, and one of the things that I think you'll see comes out so beautifully as we listen to her is how much she cares for her clients and how much she gets how home, she's a residential designer, how much home supports them and can help them live a better life, feel happier, feel more joy, feel more comfort, peace. And she's really committed to helping her clients achieve that milestone in their lives. And so you're in for a real treat. Please welcome my guest, Libby Rawes, to the show.
Cool. Hi, Libby. Welcome. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh. Our guest today is Libby Rawes from Sharp and Gray Interiors. She runs a full-service interior design firm out of you're right outside of Philadelphia, right?
Yep, just outside of Philadelphia.
Cool. I met Libby a number of years ago. She joined the Interior Designers Business Blueprint program as a founding member. She was one of the very early adopters, and that's how I was first introduced to you. But What I love about you, and really excited to bring you in today and to chat and share with our listeners about your business journey, is because I saw right away, I was like, this is somebody who gets it. You were so on fire, you were so on point, and you were just consistently making really great progress, just huge strides. And there was a moment there, I was just like whiplash. I was like, holy smokes, look at this lady, she's on fire. And it just made me so excited for you to sort of get to peer a little bit into that journey and get to see that unfold for you. And so you've learned so much, you've grown so much, you are really thriving. And I wanted to bring you in and sort of hear a little bit more detail about kind of that journey and how it unfolded for you, and share with our listeners what were some of the hard parts too, because we make it look easy, right? We put out the polished version of everything, but you and I know that's not always how it unfolds. And so I'm hoping we can just share a little bit about that with our listeners. How does that sound?
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to back up a little bit. First of all, you're a native Denverite, right? Which is where I live.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And in 2011 is when you left Denver and you and your family moved to Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
Outside Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And I understand that it was at that point you bought a home that is an historic home. It's got that East Coast vibe to it. And was that the inspiration and the turning point of your career shift? Because you had a 20-year career in branding and marketing before that. But was that the turning point where you sort of pivoted to interior design? Was it the makeover, renovation, the nurturing of that specific home that changed the direction of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think I attribute it to that. Long story short, I'm from Denver and I moved to the East Coast where nothing felt like home. It felt completely different. It's like a different country. People would ask me like, is there anything the same? I'm like, no, the squirrels are even like different colors here. Like everything's different. I was very, I don't know if I was ever like really had my head wrapped around moving. And we ended up buying this house, and you're from Denver, but it was like a Park Hill house. It was like this, it's this big kind of brick 4-square home. And I wasn't the happiest with the move. So I threw myself into the house, and it allowed me to create a home where I was away from home. And it just started getting me thinking how important it is. I mean, I think all of us went through this pandemic and realized how important home is. But I think that, I kind of learned that with this move is like, you may not be in your home, but creating your own home and your space where you feel comfortable, that you can like be with your family, was just rewarding. And I started taking classes and doing it on the side, and here we are.
Well, so that was how, 10 years ago, right? Did you start, were you doing marketing back there when you moved, or did you leave that behind? Yeah. Okay. So you did start doing that, and what you were sort of doing both at the same time for a little bit. Is that
Yeah. So I worked, I was in a corporate job for 8 years. I just started full-time at Sharp & Gray. I just kind of made the dive 3 years ago. Before that, I had spent about 1.5 years doing it part-time. Right about the 8-year mark, right before the pandemic ended, my corporate job, they wanted to move everyone, ironically, back into the office. And they asked me to move to New York, and I didn't want to move and go to the office. So I was like, well, I guess it's time to go full time with this thing. And ironically enough, nobody went back to the office because, we all were stuck at home. So the nice thing about my corporate job is they gave us a really long runway. They actually did a kind of a large layoff. And I had probably 8 months where I was working, and because everybody knew I was leaving, I didn't have nobody was involving me in things. So I just kind of built the business while I was still working, so, and then
I love that you had that opportunity.
Yeah, it was really a gift actually, because it gave me a long time to kind of get, some of the process and some of my structure in place. And it allowed me to kind of like hit the ground running, I think.
Yeah. So when you were first getting started, you mentioned in private to me that you had a little bit of fear when you were first getting started around, are people going to hire me? Because I'm not following this traditional interior design education path. I come from this corporate marketing background, but you had a little bit of, I don't know if you would call it imposter syndrome, but this fear that you weren't going to get hired or you weren't going to find the work. I don't know what your inner dialogue was for you at that time, but it sounds like most people, you had some of those questions like, well, I don't have a degree. I don't know what I'm doing, or who am I to do this? Right.
Yeah.
How did you sort of work through that and move past that?
Yeah. So, I mean, coming from branding, marketing, in my mind, it's all optics. It's kind of what you put out there is what people are going to take in. So I thought, who's going to hire a designer who's only been doing it professionally for a year? So I kept that, or less than a year, kind of on the side. Right. So I kept some of that quiet. I took it into account when I named my firm. It has an and for a reason. I wanted it to feel bigger than just me doing it. And I didn't want it just to be my name. I just wanted it to feel bigger. And I kind of did keep some of that quiet. And oddly enough, I think I've realized throughout the process, I actually realized it pretty quickly, that it's kind of like a superpower, is this professionalism that you bring. It's allowed me to take it on in a different way than I think some people who just jump out of school and try to do design, because there's so much behind the scenes that you have to kind of understand. You have to understand how to communicate with people, and you have to understand how to serve them information and create an experience. And not only did I use what I learned in corporate America to do that, I also kind of learned the persona of my clients. They're these, I got used to working with high up people and having to present to them, and, just realize they're just people who are busy and they need help. And they're the first to step out and say, this is not my expertise. And if you serve them up an experience that they're used to, it's easier for them to hop on board. So I think it's been helpful in a multitude of ways, but those two especially.
Yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit, because I mean, you and I've known each other for a number of years now, so you know how important branding is to me. And I want to, our audience is smart, right? The folks listening, most of them, they get that a brand is more than colors, fonts, logo, tagline, even copywriting, even though that is all part of it. Most of them understand that, client experience is part of your brand. And if you're listening and you didn't know that before, now you do. So, you say branding should be consistent and felt through every point in the customer's journey with you. It's a process to build, and it's always evolving. So I want to hone in on this idea for a minute about your brand, your client process, your client experience is always evolving. Can you share with me some of the evolutions of your own client process as it relates to your brand? How have you woven your brand into your client experience over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to start with manageable chunks, right? Coming from marketing has been helpful, but I mean, I will say it's challenging too, because I was used to having multiple millions of dollars to work with. I don't have that anymore. So I've had to, sometimes temper my expectations and, just take it piece by piece. And, you started with a website that I felt like was okay. And I started with copy that I wrote that was okay. And, started really layering in. I started doing professional photography very early with a mutual friend of ours. She she did my first project and showed me the ropes with photography and
So,
getting
okay, I'm
that
just going
kind
to
of,
pause you there real quick. Side note. So Libby's from Denver. I live in Denver. And I was on a photo shoot with Susie Brenner, who's a photographer here. And she's like doing her thing midway through. She's like, oh yeah, I think you know my friend Libby. And you guys have known y'all went to high school together, right? Or you
yeah,
guys have known each other since
we were 15.
Oh my
Yep.
God. Yeah, it's like such a small world. Anyway, she's lovely. So you started working with her and
Yeah. So I kind of right at the end of 2019, my very first project was done. It was a kitchen that I did on the side. They were lovely clients who trusted me 100%. And I was really able to do something I think was special. And I was like, all right, I don't have a ton of budget. I'm going to fly you out here and we're going to just hang out all weekend and we're going to take photos. And she kind of showed me the ropes and we photographed this project. We photographed my house and, it changed kind of the trajectory of the website at that point where the photography started getting more professional. I ended up hiring a copywriter and added that in. And then last year, I spent a lot of effort and time on public relations. I rebranded. I think what I say when Evolve is like, I worked on my mission and vision very early. I kind of understood where I was going. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was always came from this kind of idea that home kind of creates your happiness, right? As it always had for me. And how do we make that, how do we bring that through everything? And how do we design these homes that are beautiful, but like they're livable? They're not things that you can't touch and you can't live with. Right. And, kind of evolving that, but also making sure that that experience is felt throughout from the time you call me to the time I hug you goodbye and give you your photographs. Like it's an experience every way. So, you start slow and you add it in.
Yeah, dive into that experience a little bit. So you just gave a couple of examples, but how specifically with the clients, that your interactions with them, how does your brand show up? Because you talked about, you and I, we're the same kind of people. Like we're home people. I had a client tell me that one time. They're like, we're home people, I have friends. They're not home people. It's just not something that they put a lot of interest or value in. Like it serves a function, right? And they are my friends. They are not my clients, right? And so you get it, that, and you're tapping into the minds and hearts of your clients, right? When you're putting together this mission and vision and your copywriting. But you talk about how it shows up in the process too. Can you give some examples of how that might show up in your interactions with your clients?
Yeah, so I would say that my process is definitely outlined. It's one of the very first things I did. What's it going to be like when they call me? What will they receive? I automated a lot of it very quickly because I found that just managing, the scheduling was difficult, and I templated emails early on, and I just tried to make it as seamless as possible. And even when they talk to me, I tend to be a people person, I would say. I'm definitely more of an approachable, kind of more casual type person. So like my conversations with people are even that way. It's, hi, how are you? Are you having like, what about the weather? Are you having, it's also that Colorado person in me that will chat with you in the grocery line,
Yeah.
So just like getting to know them, building a rapport, even if it's just for a minute, talking to them about their, if it's on the discovery call, we talk about, things that they're going through, what they're looking for. And then they immediately get a consultation, they get documentation, which a lot of it I've started from being in your program. They get an idea of what the services they can, what they can have. I help kind of fit them into what I think is the best. And, I just try to treat them like they're friends immediately, even though they are clients. And but I just try to be that person who makes it easy because it's complicated. This is a infinitely complicated industry. And I mean, every day I'm like, oh God, could it ever just be simple? But it's not. And we have to like boil this down for people so that they can follow along. If we're having trouble following along, they are definitely not going to get it. So I try to serve up information that is bite size, and this is what's coming next, but I'm not going to tell them what happens at the end. Leave that for late, kind of lead them down a journey is my goal.
Yeah. I just heard you say two really important things. One, I mean, when I look at your website and I look at your beautiful interiors, to me, they exude warmth and a casualness, but still elevated. And it's that comes through on your initial discovery call, just simply in the way that the tone of your voice, the tone of your words, and how you talk to them is really setting the stage for how you want to interact. And the fact that you're taking those calls directly with these clients rather than outsourcing them, which is a choice and is an option, right? I think says something about the kind of people that you want to work with and the kind of people that you want to attract. They're also going to be the kind of people who want homes that have that same sort of warmth about them that you bring to the table. The other thing that I heard you say was that you understand that you're working with clients who are busy, and that's why they're coming to you. And you understand the value and importance of not overwhelming them with information and in doing an information overload and on to them in those initial stages and sort of drip feeding that information. And that is something that I had to learn. One of the very first coaches that I ever hired was a sales coach, because I learned right away, like, I am butchering these discovery calls. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a process. And it was at the time was a huge amount of money for me to invest in. But what I learned from her, that was one of the things that I learned from her, was the importance of not overwhelming them with information. And I learned so much more, and so much of that is what I've practiced over the years and now teach people. But you get that if you can make it look easy, make it feel easy, then they feel like they've found their person, that they're like, oh, she's our savior. She's going to help us get through this, and it's going to be great. So now let's pivot a little bit, because you laid a really strong foundation early on, and you talked about hiring a professional photographer early on. And so I want to talk a little bit about the importance of investing in your business and hiring and that growth process, because what I've seen is that because you laid such a strong foundation early on and you really got it, that it was a natural consequence that you were going to grow quickly. And so I want to start with the investing piece. You have invested in your business in a number of ways, through hiring professional photographers, copywriters. But I also understand that you decided a number of years ago to invest in a PR firm and work with a PR professional to help you. I know that they are not cheap to work with and that they're very valuable. So how did you decide that that was the right next investment for your business versus, say, advertising or other avenues that you could have taken? Why was the PR thing important for you?
So my thinking was that it created, second party credibility. It wasn't me telling you that I'm amazing, right? Because any advertiser is going to tell you that. It's somebody, it's a trusted source. It's a publication that people read telling you. I mean, PR is a whole business, right? There's things that they pitch, but if they like it enough to put it in their pages or on their website, it lends this credibility. It is definitely, it's definitely an investment. It was a lot of work. I learned a lot, and it ultimately has given me a lot more exposure that feels more natural than just sending out advertising all the time. I mean, I'm a firm believer in advertising. I'm a firm believer in all of that, but this felt a little different. This felt out of my comfort zone, and something that I don't know if anybody out there has tried PR, but without these like relationships, it's really tough. You can read all the notes and say, I'm going to, send out my letters and I'm going to try to come up with my hook, but it's very hard to get noticed. I will say though, my first PR experience, the first time I was published, I got the cover of a magazine, which I got on my own, which I'm pretty proud of. But the rest of it it's hard. So I hired it out, And it gave me a lot of exposure, but it was a little too expensive for me to keep up at this point, I would say. I would probably revisit it down the road.
Yeah, sure. Well, it seems like that can be one of those things that, yes, it does take traction. It probably is one of those things, a lot like advertising, that the longer you do it, the more effective it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also see the value of doing something like that for a period of time, just to give you that little nudge to get you to the other side. And now, when you go to your website, you can see the credentials on your homepage, which are major publications. And I think you're right. I think that speaks volumes to people who are visiting about the credibility. So even if it is not sustainable in the long run, it could be a wise choice temporarily, as long as you can sustain it long enough to make it a valuable experience. And it sounds like that's where you landed.
And that's kind of it. Is I took last year, 2023? I took last year and was like this. I consciously made this effort to level up. So that was the year that I had enough photography to get the PR coverage. That was the year that I spent and invested in my website. It was more of an investment year for me. And I did do that consciously to try to get into bigger projects and get kind of that credibility.
Are you ready to make 2024 your best year yet? Are you ready to stop flying by the seat of your pants and move into the new year with intention and clarity? If you're ready to escape the feast or famine cycle, don't miss my upcoming masterclass, the annual Planning for Interior Designers Workshop. This is the 4th year I'm hosting it, and it's going to be better than ever. Join me live on November 16th for this interactive, power-packed workshop. The truth is, most successful interior designers are the ones who can cast their vision and then make a plan to get there. But that's not always easy to do on your own, and I want to help. I have dedicated my career to helping interior designers build thriving businesses, and I'm inviting you to join and learn how you too can enjoy a business that supports you personally, creatively, and financially. We'll talk about the power of intention, how to set your intentions for the year and then put them at the center of decision-making in your business. We'll take a look back at your past year and help identify opportunities for growth and improvements to refresh your business. I'll help you design your ideal year so you can build a business that supports, not competes with, your personal time, vacations, rest, and play. I'll give you the tools to reverse engineer your revenue plan so you have clear, strategic goals broken down into bite-sized and manageable pieces. And finally, we'll dial in on a marketing strategy that factors in your personality, budget, and time into the equation. I want you to get in the right mindset so you can achieve the results you want in your interior design business. Get ready to design your year with intention. Head over to designersoasis.com/plan and register today. Again, that's designersoasis.com/plan and register today. Spots are limited, so don't wait. I can't wait to see you there.
We talk about seasons a lot, right? Seasons in business. And you're going to go through seasons, whether you're intentional about it or not, what we all do. But when you do it intentionally, like you did, I think the outcomes are so much more effective, right? Because at the end of the year, this might not be my most profitable year yet, but the whole point of investing is that you're going to see that come back to you tenfold, 100-fold, whatever the case may be. And I think there's a lot of designers, especially early on when you're just getting started, and there's simply not a whole lot of extra to go around. If you can invest just the tiniest bit in your business, you'll see it come back to you, and then there's more to invest. And then those investments don't feel quite so painful, right? And it feels like, oh man, like that sales coach, that was a lot of money. And I think it was like, I don't even know, like $4,000 or $5,000 for her course, and working with her at the time. And that was a tremendous amount of money. I mean, it's still a lot of money to me, but looking back now, I can see how
That's
much
that foundation.
it benefited. Yeah. And there is I think an intuition and a knowingness and a trust that you have to have when it comes to investing, but also like, I mean, I've made investments. Well, I'm sort of reeling from one right now, that was supposed to help us have a better understanding of our numbers. And it just turned out to be an investment that didn't pay off. And it kills me. It absolutely kills me. So that's not to say that sometimes, you might make an investment and it doesn't work out or doesn't pan out. But the only way to know is to try it, or to weigh those risk factors too.
And trust your gut, because you need to, I personally think you have to be really honest what you're good at and what you're not, it's sometimes a hard thing to do, but say, this is not, I'm good at marketing and advertising. I understand that, but I did not understand PR. So, and understanding, like at that point, I was like, I need a professional copywriter. This stuff I'm writing I'm not a copywriter. It's not cutting it, and I need a good photographer because my iPhone stuff is not cutting it. So just kind of adding those layers.
And so are you seeing the quality of your clientele that's coming through the doors? Is that reflected in the kinds of projects that you're seeing come through today?
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely, I'm getting more kind of whole home, larger renovations. I'm working on like probably 5 right now that are multiple room, big construction type projects. I'm still nowhere near where I want to be. So it's always a work in progress, but it's definitely changed. It's more ideal clients. I think back to when I started and some of the jobs I was taking, I was like, what was I doing? Why was I trying to do this, or trying to fit these people into full service when it didn't fit, or, taking on projects that maybe paid, but didn't have any creative value, or, so I'm getting a lot less of that, where I feel like I get the creative value, but I also get, I can actually ask for what I'm worth. And that's been that's a whole other Oprah, but,
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we always feel like, well, I'm never where I want to be, but I try to remind others and remind myself of this. You're exactly where you need to be right now. You are exactly where you need to be right now. But so you're saying that it's paying off, that you're not getting as much of the kinds of projects that don't light you up creatively, and that you're getting, you're attracting clients that have the kind of budgets, not only for their projects, but for you and clientele that values you. And that is the dream for most designers. So I hope you recognize that. Well, let's talk about this for a second, because you're busy, right? You are busy. Since we met, you've hired, I believe, at least 2 team members that I know of. So I want you to take us back a little bit to before you had anyone on your team. So many designers ask me, and I want to get your hot take on this, Kate, how do I know when to hire? They are afraid to hire too soon and that they won't be able to sustain the work for them. But then they're also afraid to hire too late when they're already in the weeds and they don't have the time to even find the right person to hire. So for me personally, it's always been a strong dose of intuition and trusting that I have the ability to bring forth the work, but also knowing what's in the bank. So how did you know when it was the right time to make that first hire, and how did you decide what role to hire for first? I'm curious.
So, again, I feel like I'm a pandemic designer where I, really got I got trial by, it's like a firing squad of work. And I was trying to homeschool my kids and I was trying to keep it all together. So it's hard to I feel like we're just now getting into a cycle that's a little more realistic of how it should work. But I was just inundated with work. So I photographed that project right before the pandemic. I released it and started promoting it like a few weeks maybe before the pandemic. And then all of the business just started kind of rushing in, good, bad, whatever. All of it came in. And I was thrilled. I was not quite ready. But I worked really, really hard, and I quickly kind of realized that the admin, kind of the management of all of the things is not my strong suit. I tend to be a more of a big picture. So as much as I know the details are what make it work, they take more energy for me. So I hired actually a part-time contractor who was a friend of mine who actually worked in corporate with me. So I knew her very well. We had worked together, and she was, she just kind of took some stuff and ran with it. She ended up moving on, and I took on a part-time person who wasn't, the exact right fit, but she was helpful at the time. And then I finally, put out, and it's interesting because at that point, I had a few more followers on Instagram. I had a few more fans, people who followed me that I would talk to. And this, I said, we're hiring. And this woman who lives actually just very close to me reached out, and I'm actually kind of proud to say that everyone who works with me also has a second career. So this was her second career out of marketing. But she's this organizational like ninja where I just can't, it's just beyond. So she takes care of all of the stuff that like I can't do. And I specifically hired someone who wasn't in design for that role because I think I just needed someone who just knew how to manage stuff and could manage people and who could talk to clients and kind of all the things that I said earlier. So she's been with me for over a year. She's just part-time. And then most recently, we'll back up a little bit more. For a while, I was using a lot of contractors, maybe some people to help sourcing. I outsourced all my drawings. I was even outsourcing like site visits to architecture students to take measurements just because
oh wow,
I had no time. So but most recently, I've hired another part-time contract designer. Again, second career, corporate.
And I just want to clarify something for the listeners. So when you say contractors, you're talking about independent contractors.
Yes.
Doing design or admin, not a general contractor, but independent contractors who are doing various roles. I just want to clarify that because I could see how that might be a little bit confusing. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. So she works on a contract basis. She's been with me for just a few months. It's been awesome because I don't know how much you've outsourced, but like when you're outsourcing to numerous different people who are just hopping in and hopping out, you're like this quarterback. So all I was doing was quarterbacking work.
I'm like, I don't know anything about football. What is a quarterback?
Just throwing stuff to people.
Sports references are lost on me.
But I felt like I had to manage everything. I'd be like, I'm sending this to you now, send it back to me, and then I'll send it to this person. And it's like, you're stuck in the middle. So I wanted someone who could own a project start to finish, who could come with their own creative ideas. Because the other thing about with, just hiring someone to do SketchUp is I still had to draw it all out and I had to give, exact, instructions. So I wanted someone who could say, hey, what about this? And somebody to collaborate with, because it can be like a lonely life being getting in your own head and being like, does this look terrible or is this good? Or like, I just need to ask somebody. So it's been great.
Yes, 100%. I totally understand that. And I have been fortunate to work with some really talented designers who I know, us working together is going to have way better results than just me doing it on my own. And it does feel good to feel like you can bounce those ideas off from. But the other thing I'm hearing that it's true for me, and I hear that it resonates for you too, is that when you have somebody who they're not an independent contractor in the sense that they're running their own business, but they're working side by side with you, that there's a lot more accountability. There's more skin in the game. There's more ownership. Yeah. And the result from that is far better than somebody who's just, as you say, popping in and popping out. And I've always considered that as an option. The first way you did it, I've never actually implemented it. But that was always a hesitation of mine. It was like, I feel like I'm just going to have to explain this to death. And by the time I'm done explaining it, I could have done it myself. So, I know that there are some designers who have found that to work, for a little while. I just don't see that being a long-term solution if
Yeah.
you're really looking to grow a business and have somebody grow with you. And she might be a contractor right now, but she very well could grow into an employee role. And when you get to that level, you are really working with people, ideally, who are super reliable and super accountable. And it feels like it's a good place to be.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I think, is, starting small, and you started and had a couple of misses, and I think it's important to really point that out too. And I certainly have.
Yeah.
That's just part of the gig. That's part of the deal. You're not gonna. I mean, my very, very first hire was phenomenal. She was out of this world, and those were huge shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And
I know, right?
and I feel like I just got lucky in that case. But yeah, there were a couple of misses after that. And I think there's so much fear around for designers when hiring.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
well, what if it doesn't work out? So what? Then it doesn't work out.
Yeah. It's a very,
That's
I mean,
just
I will say hiring has been scary. And I will also say that I've mentioned this before, that starting a business is easy, but growing the business is so much harder because you don't know. And sometimes it is intuition, and sometimes it's a leap, and sometimes it's poring over spreadsheets of your financials and being like, I hope this is the right choice. And, it's a dose of both, but it's definitely more nerve-wracking than just starting the business.
I think that is the soundbite of the year, Libby. That is so true. It is. And again, that goes back to those seasons that, like, starting a business is an initial season, but there's always going to be different challenges. It's just the challenges change depending on what season you happen to be in. So we're heading into a season where we're starting to think about what we might want for ourselves next year in business, how we might evolve next year, and perhaps setting some goals. You mentioned that this last year has been a big year of investing in your business. Have you started to think about what's next, what you want to focus on in the year ahead, and what's next for you?
Yeah, so I think, looking back, it was a year of investment, and then I've been working on just kind of refining and learning, kind of refining my processes and how I work with clients, and, how we manage these things. And I think that, next year, my goal, I think what I'm moving into, and I think I'm already started, is like this focus on partnerships, like building partnerships with trade vendors. And, because for a while the work was just pouring in from every direction. And, as you get to, bigger projects, I think it's naturally more competitive. It's naturally a little bit more about who you know. So I'm really trying to kind of focus on like partnerships and how do I, nurture, because we're clients, our clients are our clients, but our trade partners are also kind of internal clients, I would call them. We want to kind of nurture those relationships too, and build them, and hopefully have a reciprocal kind of working relationship where we kind of give each other work and grow together is my hope. So
are you talking about like builders, general contractors, realtors? Is that what you mean when you talk about partnerships?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of like, in my mind, I'm getting back to like those networking days where it's, meeting realtors and, reaching out to architects and building a list of, good contractors that, hopefully we can work with. It's funny. Contractors, I'm used to working with them. So I tend to, call them first because they're easy. So I'm like trying to branch out, and I'm like, I need to start calling architects and, finding ways to just build those relationships, maybe go to networking events or join, join like women's groups, or just those kind of grassroots, like feet on the street type of things.
Yes. I love that. And, I'm so grateful that we're in a time and a place where we can do that.
Right.
And there's nothing more valuable than building personal relationships that are authentic, right?
Mhm.
And mutually beneficial. And they become mutually beneficial when they are authentic. And you just can't beat an in-person conversation and the energy that you exchange with people. And there's so many ways that you can do that. And of course, networking events or continuing education events are great ways to do that. And for me personally, I am not. Um, this is a goal of mine. I'm working on it. I public speaking and standing live in front of
Yeah,
people and
me too.
put it, one way directional information exchange. That is just not something I'm comfortable with yet. I would like to get there. But having lunch with somebody or learning about what somebody else does professionally so that I can maybe try to send people their way, like that is a tone and a beat that I can stick to. So if you're listening and you're thinking about, oh, I want to do, that's a great idea. I'm in a season where I need to start to think about partnerships. Libby just mentioned a couple of really specific ways that you could do that, but I really encourage you to think about what is a good fit for your personality, because it's not the same for everybody, right? There's no one size fits all approach to how you can market your business, but
Mhm.
building those relationships is really important, and how you do that can look a number of
Yeah.
different ways. As we wrap up, I want you to talk for a moment. We're gonna get into a little coaching moment. You're gonna coach your younger self. I
Mm.
want you to talk for a moment directly to that listener who's considering a career change, who may be thinking to themselves what you were thinking, however many years ago that was. What would you say to that person who's on the fence? They are thinking about a career change and pivoting. What would you say to that person about taking those first few scary steps? Can you sort of reach back and talk to your younger self and coach them just a little bit? What would you say to them?
I mean, I would say trust in your ability. It may not come from interior design. That might not be your past and what you know. It might not be what you were trained in. But
Mhm.
there's so much value that I actually think, like I said, when I was trying to minimize it, I think it was a bad idea because I mean, there's so much value in this stuff. It doesn't have to be directly related. If you have experience in anything, like try to figure out how it lends itself to growing a business.
Mhm.
Maybe you're great at, um, graphic design, or maybe you're great at events. There's all these different things that you can bring to the table that they just don't relate always. So I think you just have to kind of trust that there's something in there, and how do you pivot and use it to your advantage?
Mhm.
And how do you grow from them?
Ah, perfect. I love that. It's so true. And I think if you can move the emphasis off of the experience and put the emphasis on, well, what are the skills that I gained from that
Exactly.
experience? That's a really perfect jumping off point. And that is one of the very first lessons that we talk about inside the blueprint is, I would say probably 80% of the people who I work with are people who are pivoting from a different career. I went to school for interior design. I've done different types of design: residential, commercial, large scale, small scale. Um, and so, my only experience prior to that, it was like waiting tables in college. And for the longest time, I was just like, I did not see any value in that experience.
But
And
there is, you learned how to help people, learned how to customer service and how to manage
yeah,
your time and how to get stuff done and deal with challenges. I mean, I was a
yeah,
waitress and I dropped a lemonade on someone. I had to deal with that, everything happens and you grow from it.
yeah,
So
exactly, exactly. I worked. There's a member who she was a private investigator for the FBI prior to pivoting to interior design. And she was like, Kate, what the hell? How does that relate? And we
yeah,
had to dig a little bit, but it didn't take long for us to realize, oh, wow, you have an uncanny ability to ask really pointed questions
Really
that
good questions.
quickly dig deeper and understand what's really behind this motivation, right? And that was a huge light bulb moment for her. I've talked to a lot of people coming from finance, trying to understand how that works. I'm like, that for me, that's an easy one. I'm
huge.
Like, that's huge. You totally
spending
understand.
Other people's money. It's great.
You
are
know
helping
how to
other
do
people
it
and keep it track. Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly. So I love that you said that, because it's something it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart too, that, unless you've been sitting on the couch for the last 20 years, you have something to offer, even if you've been a stay-at-home mom, which is one of the hardest jobs in the world to have. There's tremendous value in that work as well. And
Moms
you've got
get
something
stuff
to
done,
offer.
man.
Oh my God, like you wouldn't imagine. And so there's value in that as well. So if you're sitting here listening, thinking, how can I draw upon my past experiences, really dig into what are those specific skills that you developed in that experience, and start with that. And Libby, you are right on point to remind our listeners of that. I could sit here and chat with you forever, but I know you are one busy lady. You've got a whole lot of clients you are helping right now. But before we go, can you just share with our listeners, where can people find you online?
Oh, you can find me at sharpandgrey.com. That's SHARP, the word and, GREY, just to be different, put an E in there. Or you can find me at Sharp and Grey on Instagram, Facebook, or Pinterest, I believe.
We will be sure to link to all of that in the show notes, but go follow her on Instagram. She is dishing up some beautiful interiors, and really, really fun to watch what you're posting there. So, Libby, thanks so much. I appreciate your time today and for you sharing all about your journey. And I'm so excited to see what unfolds for you in this year ahead.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Bye for now.
Hey friend, thank you so much for letting me spend a part of this day with you. I'm so passionate about helping designers like you, and I believe in a rising tide, that when one of us does well, we all do better. So if you share this attitude of abundance with me, I want you to do just one little thing. Please share this episode with someone you think might love it. And if you're feeling extra generous today, go ahead and take just 30 seconds to open your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It's free for you to do, and it helps me to be able to keep making more episodes and resources for you. However you choose to help, please know I appreciate you so very much. Thank you, my friend. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you soon.